You know, there are lots of opportunities to join the public service. I certainly did. I went into the Coast Guard. I joined the military. And the military has certain distinct benefits, right? Like, you get to travel the world. My brother was in the Navy. You see the world. He saw a lot of San Diego, but a lot of opportunity. San Diego's not a bad place to be. You get education. You don't have to worry about what you're going to wear in the morning. It's kind of decided for you. But you have mornings, which are really early. But really just a tremendous opportunity in public service. You can also look at the executive branch. There we go. And that's like what Chirac mentioned, working at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Right, so that's a phenomenal opportunity. You get to, if you have some background, if you have a degree in science and math, a STEM degree, you walk in and you've got, you work your way up, but you've got some credibility. You bring those, you can work in those organizations that actually touch on your interest areas, like NASA, if you're big into science. Jenny mentioned the Department of State, if you're interested in policy, Department of Commerce, another great opportunity. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Capitol Hill. It is a unique ecosystem in itself. Former Congressman and 9/11 Commissioner Lee Hamilton once said that if you do public service, it's an opportunity to really live fully. And I agree with that, regardless of which of these you decided to play in. But let's talk a little bit about Capitol Hill. How many people have seen that animated Schoolhouse Rock's I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill? Yes? I was going to play it for you, but honestly, I just won't put you through that. But the whole premise of this, quite frankly, is ridiculous, right? So if you've spent any time on the Hill, you'll learn that members of Congress don't actually write bills. And in this cartoon, this member has this great idea, and he's like, hey, I'm going to write this bill. And so he pivots around and starts typing on a typewriter. I'm not going to ask you how many people have actually typed something on a typewriter. I'm 41 years old, and I haven't. But he turns around, this Representative McCoy, and starts typing away. That doesn't happen, all right? That's not how laws are written. A member has an idea for a law. A member has an idea for a bill. But then they have to put pen to paper, and they get their staffs, whether it be committee staff or personal office staff, to go ahead and hammer that out. And they work with they work with the Legislative Council, which are these subject matter expert lawyers who write laws all the time, and they put together these pieces of legislation. But that's not all staff do. Yes, they get to work on writing laws. The members sponsor them. The members know what's in them. The members put it together. But if you're going to make a modification to Title 50 United States Code section fill in the blank, it's not the member who's going to be spending that time. It's the staff. They also help congressional hearings, right? So we've got, on any given day, I'm sorry, just numbers, by the way, laws. There were over 10,000 bills introduced in the last Congress. 10,000. So you want to talk about an opportunity to make a difference at a young age? Be one of those people sitting behind the computer screen working with Legislative Council to put that text to paper. Staff support congressional hearings. Generally speaking, those things are somewhat choreographed, right? You don't have a hearing that where you're not expecting a specific outcome. So staff help write the memos that the members review to touch on the key policy issues that they're going to hit up in that hearing. They talk about, or they write the questions. They help draft recommended questions based on the written testimony, which is submitted in advance, right? If you're a witness to Congress, you have to typically submit your testimony at least 2 days in advance. Staff pour through that testimony and come up with some recommended questions. They get to help do the follow-up. They get to meet with subject matter experts, all in advance of engaging in the stuff that you see on C-SPAN, if you're unfortunate and watch C-SPAN like me. And there's 9,500 of you, right? That's a huge population of folks who are your peers, who you get to work with every day. Now, they're not all in Washington, D.C. There's staff at district offices and in senators' offices and whatnot across the country. But the vast majority of them are here in Washington. And to help you do your job, if you're not a subject matter expert, you have unique accesses to tools that really only Congress has access to. So the Library of Congress, it's like the world's largest repository of information. There's like 164 million holdings in the Library of Congress. When I was a Hill staffer, I could send somebody an email and I didn't have to go find it. They would bring it to me. They would bring me the resource that I was looking for. You have access to 600 subject matter experts at the Congressional Research Service. These are folks who you say, hey, I want to know everything there is about trade, about space, about cars, about healthcare. And they have a subject matter expert whose job it is to know that. And you can sit down and talk with them, pepper them with questions, ask them to do a little research for you, and they'll do it. And then they have the investigative body that Congress uses called the Government Accountability Office. 3,000 subject matter experts all around the country, and they do investigations. So you say, I really think this particular issue seems a little wrong, or I'm concerned about, as Jenny mentioned, I'm concerned about the lack of access to markets outside the United States for small launch companies. And they'll do that research for you. They'll meet with the Department of Commerce. They'll ask them about their policies. They'll meet with the Department of State, and then they'll come up with recommendations for improvement. So all of those are fantastic resources that you get to have access to if you're on Capitol Hill. And you get to meet with industry representatives, like me now, but others. Like you get to sit down and talk with them all the time about what's happening. You get to talk to think tanks. Think tanks want to talk to you. They want to know where public policy is going. So lots of opportunities. It's just a really cool job. And I'm telling you as somebody who's had some really cool jobs, right? I've been captain of 2 ships. I was captain of a ship in Iraq. I was captain of a ship on 9/11 in New England. And yet, if you want to talk about the ability to really influence how things are happening and shaping in the United States and around the world, congressional staff is pretty much where it's at. So I guess what I would offer is, now that I'm in industry, I've learned all about baseline programs, right? Everything's on a baseline program. And then in those baseline programs, sometimes you say, we're going to take an excursion. We're going to go check out this thing that supports the baseline program, but it's not actually it's not going to result in a deliverable. If you think of your career tracks as sort of that baseline program, that trajectory that you're going to be following, think about Capitol Hill as a possible excursion. Do a year or 2 on Capitol Hill, do more. And there are lots of ways you can get on there, to get in there, but just think about that as an excursion. That's what I did. I was a Coast Guard fellow. So I was a career Coast Guard officer doing intel stuff. I'd just come back from Iraq, going to intel school, and they said, we want somebody who can be a subject matter expert on intelligence. And apparently they couldn't find anyone, so I got the job, which was really neat. And I rolled right into it, and I stayed. I loved it. I very much enjoyed it. I could have gone back to the Coast Guard, though, after my tour, And that's the whole reason why the military branches and organizations do those fellowships, right? They want to develop that expertise that you get out of that organically. So as with any job, though, what you get out of these jobs is really, especially a job on the Hill, is what you put into it. At the very least, you're going to be a witness to history in the making. I can't tell you how many times we're like walking through the Capitol. You've just had to sit still because a security detail is walking right past you, and it's like, you know, Netanyahu or something. You know, you are there watching history happen. If you have that STEM background, like I had a bit of an intel background and an operations background, the minute you walk through the door, you are seen as a subject matter expert. You have to get better and better at that in that field, but you absolutely come with sort of having your chops already. You get to learn how government really works. And you know, newsflash, it's not "I'm just a bill" on YouTube. You get to see the authorization process, the appropriations process, the trade-offs that you have to make in order to make your legislation you know, come to its fruition. And you're going to make the best friends. You're going to make lifelong friends. And it's not going to matter if they're Republican or Democrat. If you're a Republican or Democrat or independent, you know, you're sort of in the foxhole together, and you really do grow some tremendous, tremendous friends. Now, I don't like change, right? Like, and I'm thinking of that Family Guy Stewie, who's like, I don't like change. Yeah, no, I get it. Change is hard, and it creates angst. When I was leaving the Coast Guard, my dad, my late father, was saying, why are you leaving? Like, why are you getting out before you get your 20-year pension? 20-year pension. Raise your hand here if you really think you're going to be in the same job for 20 years. Right. We are not our parents. We are not our parents' generation. My dad was a blue-collar founder. He used to pour molten metal into forms. But he was convinced that if you left a company before 20 years, you were just kissing your career and this golden parachute away. That is not what that is not what people do today. In fact, I was doing the math. In my 23 years of government service, I've had 14 distinct different jobs. It's not because I can't hold down a job. It's just because there's so many new and exciting opportunities that you got to do, and they made it very, very easy. Between my Coast Guard service, my time on Capitol Hill, and my time, as Chirac said, as part of the dark side of the force. So lots of opportunities. And you know, you want to have some stability, right? You do like some stability. But you got to have a balance. Stability, flexibility. You've got to be able to switch it up a little bit. I mean, that's why I went to my company specifically, Ball, right? They've been around for a very long time. They've been working on satellites for over 60 years. But I can already tell with the corporate culture, lots of flexibility to sort of explore and do new things. And you know, you got to look for that. I guess I would close with this idea that if you're going to follow a career trajectory, don't be afraid to make an excursion. I think Helen Keller once said, like, life is either a grand adventure or it's nothing at all. It's a daring adventure, or nothing at all. So be a little daring. Try something different. And I would recommend, if you don't decide to join Chirac over at the NGA, consider Capitol Hill. Thank you very much.